Stress is causing 90% of doctors' visits in the United States. Stress is directly correlated with cardiovascular disease, which is also the leading cause of death in America. Today, guys, we are here to talk about ways to reduce stress specifically in the workplace and decrease your overall workplace burnout. This is the Holistic Travel Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Condon, occupational therapist.
And I'm John Wilson, DPT.
And we wanted to come on today, guys, because we are wrapping up our amazing 6 months here in Phoenix, Arizona, and we are heading on to our next adventure. And we've had some amazing opportunities here in terms of work and enjoyment, but that hasn't come with some levels of stress. And that's very normalized. We wanted to kind of talk about how in today's society, it seems like we are always on the go. We are accessible 24/7 with our phones, emails on our phones. We have higher demands in terms of our workplace and less of a balance between work and life. So, we wanted to come with a few tips on ways to reduce your overall workplace burnout.
Yeah, and it's all about priorities at the end of the day. I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of people, and I know, personally, I've seen a lot of my patients, they put work ahead of their health. And that's just something that we kind of
Yes.
want to, we want to start, pushing, putting your mental health, putting your physical health, your emotional
Preach.
health, everything kind of above that work where, you're not getting that burnout. You're not going to work like, oh, I got to do this, got to do that. And then you're, so stressed where to the point where now you're developing, heart disease or high blood pressure. I mean, how many people out there have high blood pressure
So
nowadays?
many.
And it's,
Everyone.
we see every single person that we treat, when we were in the ALFs and even just above the
Even
age of
now,
40 and 50
yeah.
have high blood pressure and they
Yeah.
take medication to reduce. And that is all directly stress related.
Exactly. Thank you, John. I think that it is so important to make that connection that we are causing some of these very common, you know, medical conditions. We are causing our blood pressure to be increased as to why we need medication to control it, as to why we have an increased risk of stroke, heart attack.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't really realize it until it's too
Until
late,
it's too late.
unfortunately,
Exactly.
because a lot of people will be grinding, drinking a ton of coffee or
Yeah.
caffeine, or I know a bunch of people that drink multiple energy drinks a day, and then they don't realize they just feel like, oh, this is it, your 20s, 30s, like you're young enough to where it's not really going to have an effect on you. But once you hit 35, 40 years old, and you did that for 10, 15 years at work, and
Right.
all of that is going to catch up to you. You're gonna increase in your weight.
Yeah.
It's just going to have a lot of negative effects on your mental and physical health as you get older.
Right. I read this book one time. It's called The Slight Edge. Kind of talks about how compound interest in our lives builds up. We can either build wonderful habits or we can build poor habits. And they use the analogy of if you ate a cheeseburger and the next day had a heart attack, you probably never eat a cheeseburger again, right? But it's not just one cheeseburger that causes a heart attack. It's not just one poorly managed day of stress from your work that's going to cause a heart attack. It's days and months and years of you thinking like, this is what I have to do. I have to just grind it out. I have to not have that balance, and at the end of the day, it is causing that increased risk and increased cause of heart disease and stroke. And it's just something that we wanted to bring to your guys' attention today.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, on the other side of it, you have to work. You have to make money. You
Right.
can't just not, work unless you get the lottery or something. I don't know. But so we want to come here today with 4 tips that can maybe help you out a little bit in the workplace if you kind of feel like you are feeling that burnout at the end of the week. The first one is, and we have been preaching this, since the beginning of the podcast, is meditation. So a big thing that I try to do, I work at an outpatient physical therapy clinic for 4 hours straight. I'm seeing 10 plus patients. I got to kind of stay, mentally focused for that, 4 hours. And unfortunately, sometimes I can't take a 5 to 10 minute break to go into the break room and do some deep breathing. I definitely try to, whenever I get a little bit of time to kind
Yeah.
of go in there and I just want to say, I think as a country, we should normalize, instead of like, oh, you get a smoke break,
Right,
how it was for
exactly.
such a long time. I think we should do meditation breaks
Yeah,
every two
sunlight
hours.
breaks,
Yeah,
getting outside the building. I think that's
go for a
huge.
little walk. I mean, yeah,
There's so many people at my job that don't leave the building all day.
all day.
Maybe like, especially here in Arizona when it gets hot in the summer, like
Definitely
the
not.
only time they're going outside is when they're going from their car to the building, from the building to the car.
Yeah.
Like
And they're eating fast food. So where are they getting their vitamin D?
they're not,
Yeah.
and that increases brittle bones, it increases so many things. So just trying to take a little bit of time, maybe it's early in the morning, to get outside, get some fresh air, do some deep breathing. It is so beneficial
Yeah.
for your mind and your body.
Yeah, but like I was saying, every 2 hours, I feel like you should get a 10 to 15 minute mandatory break where you can just do some deep breathing, relax a little bit, stay off your phone, which is another big thing because
Yes, that's a good one.
you're increasing the cortisol, you're increasing that dopamine, and then you get off on lunch and then you go straight to. And again, I've done this. I still do this sometimes when I'm just kind of like not thinking about it. And that's the
Mhm.
thing. You're not really being self aware. You're just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna go on my phone or do this or do that at lunchtime and go straight back to work for 4 hours. And the burnout is real at the end of the day.
Yes, and I think that's so amazing you kind of brought that up, John, because when we talk about meditation, a lot of people group mindfulness and meditation the same, and they're kind of different. Um, Mindfulness is being aware of that, right? Being present in that moment. If you have had a stressful morning and it's your lunch break, you have to choose to take that second, do some deep breathing, not be on your phone, being present in the moment and letting your body calm down. You can meditate all you want, but if you're not being mindful throughout some of the other choices that you're making during the day, it's still going to be weighing the scales in the opposite direction that we want it to. So, really being present. A study I found conducted in 2019 did see that doing 10 to 15 minutes, literally exactly what you said, of mindfulness based stress reduction, different types of guided meditations on an app were found to increase overall well being, increase endorphins that were found to associate with positive behavior and decrease depression, decrease stress levels, and overall associated with decreased workplace burnout. The meditations had nothing to do, though, with work. They were just like great guided meditations. And therefore, that feeling of being better and being more calm directly translated into the workplace. So that was pretty cool, I thought, that
Yeah.
just like you said, taking those small minute breaks, they did them 1 to 3 times a day. So they said breakfast, lunch, and dinner was kind of how they, counted those
Yeah.
3 meditation times.
Again, it's only 30 minutes out of 24 hours. It's definitely
Right.
not
It's
bad.
exactly, it's super doable.
Yeah. Speaking of mindfulness, I just want to touch on one of my patients I had recently. She was a 40-year-old worker in I believe she was like a manager of a store where she would kind of be on her feet all day, moving around and everything. She came into my clinic with knee pain, 10 out of 10 knee pain. Her right knee was completely swollen, bone on bone in her right knee. And, she's been working there for 10, 15, 20 years now. And, I kind of just asked her what she did on a daily basis, and she said that she was on her feet, 10 hours a day. She worked, 60 hours a week. And I was like, all right, well, with the swelling in the knee, common sense, I think. But again, as a physical therapist, she's like, hey,
What do you know?
you need to take some time off. You can't be on your feet all day and expect to get any better. So immediately when I said that, she was like, "Oh, I can't do that." Like
Right.
my
Yeah.
boss wouldn't let me. My boss wouldn't. She said my boss wouldn't let me, and that just kind of hit me. Like, your boss wouldn't let you. Like, where are your priorities in life right now?
Yeah.
Like, you're working 60 hours a week. Your boss wouldn't let you. You're in 10 out of 10 pain at rest and with
Exactly.
standing and
Yeah.
walking. Like, it's not like, oh, my knee's a little sore. This is some serious stuff. And again,
Exactly.
you're 40 years old. You still have
A
40
long
plus
life?
years to
Yeah.
live. You're gonna,
Right.
and that's where a lot of people are just like, oh, I'll just get a total knee replacement and go through therapy and then go back to work and like do all this stuff. And it's like, you can prevent that from happening if you just, you know, put your priorities, have a talk like, hey, and I wrote her a note,
Right, that's what I was going to say. Like in our profession, we can make recommendations to not only our patients, but also to their workplace. If the demands, for example, with her being at the store, but demands of a job could cause too much lifting, too much bending, too much twisting, which could cause knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain. You are coming to us for that reason. We can write you notes to have your job modified to reduce your body stress.
Mhm.
However, I could write the best note in the whole world, but if you don't change your mindset about how you're going to approach that job, your pain's never going to get better.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like we can give recommendations, we can do this. And a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people get better, but a lot of people come back and they're like, oh, I'm not getting any better. Like, why is this? And they don't take that information and education home with them. They don't put it
Right.
into the real life. They're still, again, for example, I have a few people with carpal tunnel, or just, tendonitis in
Wrist,
the
yeah.
wrist, tendonitis in the thumb. A lot of people coming in recently with tendonitis in the thumb. And why is that? What is common nowadays? Video games on your
Texting.
phone. Exactly. What are you using? These tendons in the thumb. So again, we're not. This is about workplace burnout, but just kind of
That's another episode.
exactly. Just kind of thinking about like taking that information. Like, hey, you got to take you got to take that home and do be self aware, be mindful. Think about, hey, like maybe I shouldn't play 4 hours of video games tonight if I'm going to wake up the next day with sharp pain. So it's just
Right.
all about that mindfulness, and I think that meditation that you were talking about will help a lot of these people with that.
Exactly, because you're kind of taking your brain from that heightened state to a little bit more of a present state, which is allowing you to, like we said, there's so many benefits to meditation, decreasing blood pressure, increasing circulation, but just overall causing that awareness is going to help you in the long run. So that's number one. I would say mindfulness/meditation because they're different, but they coincide. Number two is going to be physical activity. We preach about that as well on this podcast because it is so important. If you are stressing out your brain, your body is going to take a toll. So, to help that, you have to almost do the opposite. You got to work your body, and therefore, that increased circulation, those myokines, things we've talked about in our other physical exercise podcasts, are directly impacting your brain and therefore reducing your overall burnout.
Yeah, definitely. And even like we talked about before, it doesn't have to be a serious hard hit workout. It can just be a decently long walk.
Right.
If you just walk for like a mile, but you kind of walk at that, like, try to walk a little bit
Yeah,
faster than you
exactly.
used to, like get the blood pumping a little bit, get the heart rate up a little bit, increase the blood flow to the brain, release those endorphins. I mean, study after study have shown that walking is just as beneficial as a hard workout.
Right. Yeah. Walking could be even more beneficial in some instances. And I think that a big thing too is sometimes we have a long day at work, we get all this kind of built up aggression and stress, and then we go home and we have no outlet. So I'm a big person that exercises in the morning, but I still try to get in some form of movement, whether it's a walk or a stretch, or, sometimes we play basketball after work, ways to kind of get out some of that pent up stress. And I think that putting your mind and your energy and your body into a physical task is so much more beneficial than just having a long day and sitting and watching TV. Like you're not being able to put that energy anywhere else. And therefore, that energy just compounds over time, kind of like we were talking about earlier. So, that's a big thing with exercise for me is that I find that it is an outlet that allows me to manage my overall feelings of workplace, stress. So that therefore decreases my chances of that workplace burnout. So, just trying to find that time, like Jon said, whether it's a walk, whether it is a stretch, or, you playing a sport that you enjoy. Maybe go outside with your kids, do something as a family. Like getting out and moving just has so many amazing benefits. So, really trying to implement that into your daily routine. And again, like Jon said earlier, what sometimes we get so stressed that we don't want to work out. So now we're like compounding negative impacts. So trying to find, okay, not only is exercise going to help with the stress, but it's also going to help with so many other parts of your life.
Definitely, definitely. And another tip, I would say, tip number 3, is just kind of like self-care. And that is, a very broad
Right.
area, but I kind of want to just talk about, like we talked about before, is diet. So definitely having a good diet is so beneficial. Kind of everything can be solved if you just, follow a good diet, get your vitamins, get your minerals in. And honestly, the people who I see just kind of asking about their diet a little bit in the clinic, and just
Right.
kind of hearing about all the processed foods, all the sugar, just the sodas that people still drink, which is crazy to me every time I see somebody drinking like a Mountain Dew or a Pepsi or
Yeah.
something. Um, Again, if you have a little bit, it is what it is. But
Right. And I think, like Jon was kind of saying, is that we talk about diet when we talk about self care because we are in a huge society of treat yourself. You've had a long day, you're stressed out. I'm going to treat myself to a hamburger and a soda and a milkshake because that's what I deserve from a long, stressful day. But we're not realizing that that's not the self care we're talking about. That's kind of compounding in the opposite, that's tipping those scales more negative than positive. The self care we're talking about is maybe going and getting a really nice smoothie, or you spend a little extra money to get a nicer quality dinner. Maybe it's going.
get a massage.
Great minds think alike. I was going to say maybe you get a massage or a facial or you get your nails done, something that helps you to like feel grounded and feel better because at the end of the day, like if we feel good about ourselves, we're going to put that energy into our workplace. So even if maybe we don't love our jobs, but we love what getting a massage makes us feel like,
Yeah.
then we're going to be smiling and we're going to be feeling a little bit lighter and a little bit happier, which will hopefully kind of change that workplace vibe.
Yeah. Even yesterday. Yesterday was my last day, our last day at work in Arizona, on our way to Denver, Colorado next. But even yesterday, my last week, my last day, definitely didn't take it easy on me at all. I had a full day, and afterwards, I went and got my haircut.
Looking
Anyways,
nice.
and just I kind of used that time getting my haircut. That was kind of my time to like calm down, treating myself. That's what I did.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
haircuts nowadays aren't cheap. It's not like $10 like it used to be. It's like $40. But using that time to do some deep breathing. That's exactly what I did. I spent
Right.
20, 30 minutes while I was getting my haircut, getting the shampoo and everything, just like deep breathing. And then honestly, I came out feeling like so much better,
Yeah.
so much more relaxed. And then I went and played basketball, and I mean, come on.
He gets the exercise, he
Yeah,
gets
it
the
was
social
just like such a great.
interaction. That is his self care. And that's the thing, is like you guys can define what self care means to you. Maybe it's a bath. I love a good bath with some Epsom
Huge.
salts in it, deep breathing, but maybe it's something a little bit more active and you can kind of combine two for one. Like when I was home in Florida, I would always go rollerblading along the water. That was like a little bit of that self care sometimes because I wanted to just be by the water. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be moving. And it was like a treat because I didn't do it all the time. So, whatever that looks like to you guys, I think is so important to have that balance and never sacrifice yourself for your job. And Jon did an amazing job talking about that at the beginning of the podcast, guys. Like, we understand we have to work to make a living. The cost of living is more expensive now than it ever was, yet our hourly rate isn't really increasing. And therefore, it feels like we need to do more. We have to work more. We have to work
On the
harder.
weekends.
Yeah, work on the weekends. Like find that balance. In Europe, they do like a 4-day work week and a 3-day work end, and that's like or weekend, and that is their standard. Like it is a little bit more relaxed, and people would probably say like, "Oh, but we need to be more productive." All this stuff, and at the end of the day, though, if you are finding time for yourself it's going to allow you to be more productive, allow you to be ready to take on those responsibilities at work instead of feeling all that stress and all that
Yeah,
burnout.
and it's quality over quantity at the end of the
Yes,
day
that's a great,
because
yeah.
even with me, for example, I feel like Mondays, especially when we have a nice, weekend where we go on a hike, get some sun, do some exercise. Mondays, I'm kind of locked in and I'll have a couple evaluations, and I do feel like mentally I just have a lot of energy, a lot of good things to give on a Monday. And again, this is just, an example. And a lot of people probably don't feel like this because maybe they're out drinking and they don't get that
Yeah.
time to kind of like reset. But the people who do reset, maybe at work, they're feeling great on Monday. And sometimes on Fridays, I'm kind of like a little bit mentally exhausted, and
Yeah.
like you were saying, like we think that productivity, okay, you got to work 45, 50, 60 hours a week, then you'll be productive. In reality, again, it's different with every job, but I feel like quality, being there and giving your 100% for 30 hours a week is better than being there and giving 50% for 50 hours. And that's just my opinion.
Right. No, and I would agree with that. I think that you can see that in some of the research they've done comparing, the different hour work weeks with the United States versus Europe. But, it is all comes down to the way that you define that in your mind as well, and it's really hard. We usually have to work 40 hours a week, but trying to find that balance in those times outside. And I think this brings me to an amazing point that my friend Lindsay, shout out to Lindsay, told me today. And it's that you really have to focus on leaving your work out the door, right? Not bringing it home with you, not letting it, and even mentally and emotionally, not letting it drain you and stop you from doing the things that you want to do and that you love to do. And that's so much easier said than done,
Yeah, especially in the healthcare field.
Yeah, because we see so many people, we are invested in their progress. We normally go into healthcare because we want to help people. So we're invested in their progress, yet that shouldn't mean that we sacrifice who we are, right? I love the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I try to tell that to every healthcare worker that can hear it. Like, you can't do something for someone else if you're not doing things for yourself. So,
Facts.
just remember that, guys, that whether you're in, business and you sit at a desk all day and you're constantly mentally straining yourself, or you have a more physical job and you're lifting and you're twisting and you're doing things like prioritize yourself. Your job will, you'll find ways to adapt to your job.
Take that PTO, go on a vacation, come
Right.
out to Colorado. You can visit us a little bit.
Exactly.
We can go hiking and see the Rocky Mountains. But no, I mean, seriously, like, take that time off if you have it, and if you need to rest, like I said with my patient recently with the knee, like that just really really struck me. Like if you need to rest, take a weekend off. Rest your legs. Do what you got to do. If you're feeling out of it mentally, go on a walk, go shoot some hoops, do something that is fun, and
Right.
you know get rid of that workplace burnout.
Yes. And I think that would bring us to our last tip is do something you enjoy. Be with people that you enjoy. Find that thing that makes you want to get up every morning and do what you do. If you absolutely hate what you do, why are you doing it? Like, we don't really find that in our professions, but I know some people do, and they're just like, I absolutely, like, I hate my boss. I hate this. I hate that. And it's like, well, but it's a job, you know?
Yeah,
So,
or if I stick to it, then I'll kind of work my way up in the company for the next 5 to 10 years. And so
yeah, that's a big one.
definitely disagree with that mindset. I mean, again, if you're working your way up in the company and you're not, you know, killing yourself or depressed while you're doing it,
Right.
do what you got to do. You can grind. Definitely not against grinding. We both, grind.
Yeah.
But if you go to work and you hate your job for multiple years at a time, and you go through your 20s or 30s just like hating it, just to get to that point when you're 40 years old, I definitely disagree with that.
Yeah. So trying to find that balance, whether it's at your actual workplace, like, can you, as silly as it sounds, a lot of the research says this, like, can you change some of the negative things that you find about work and try to make them positive, Or outside of work, can you join, maybe it puts you out of the comfort zone to join a rec sports league, but if it's something you love to do, you get to interact with other people who love to do the same thing. You get to move, you get to do stuff. So, can you find ways, or yoga class, like that's it is for me. I go consistently once or twice a week, and it's just my time for myself, but it also gives me that level of social interaction. As Jon said, yesterday was our last day of work, but it was also my last day at my yoga studio, which I think was harder than leaving my job. And you know, I've made connections with the yoga instructors, and it was just kind of like this has been so impactful for me on having a good work life balance, because straight from work, I would go to yoga. So it was like any stress that I was maybe taking home with me and not listening to my own advice and leaving it at the door, I definitely, it just melted away after yoga. So it was like, it was meant more to me than just exercise or just meditation. It was like that barrier of like, hey, like, don't worry about this anymore. So finding that for you, it looks different for everyone. And maybe it's, going out and eating pizza. And, we always say that in the right context, doing things that maybe aren't the healthiest can be beneficial for your mental health and for your overall body. And it's just so important to kind of find that balance, whether it's with people you care about, whether it's an activity you care about, find enjoyment.
Definitely, guys. So, hey, put those tips to use, and especially if you're feeling any kind of workplace burnout. If you're feeling burnout in any way or stressed in any
Exactly,
way,
yeah.
we want to just come back to that point where 90% of all doctor's visits nowadays are stress related, directly related to stress, and that is directly correlating to the increase in heart disease in America nowadays. And we want to start to see a decline in that and start to see
Yes.
that age, of how long we live go higher and higher, because
Right.
right now, it's kind of going down with all
Yeah.
the stress and the poor diet and just everything in America nowadays with the obesity and everything, and that's all related to stress. So please, take these tips, and hopefully they can work out for you.
Exactly. So just to go through them one more time: meditation, exercise, self care, and enjoyment. I think if you can put those four things into your life, it is going to unlock so many more possibilities that you've never imagined. So thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode, guys. We will be coming to you soon with some podcasts from Colorado. But as for now, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.
Peace.